Hello, Lisa here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. This is a very, very, very exciting day, and I'm going to tell you why in just a minute. But first, hi, if you're new here. I like to make lots of videos about tarot and oracle and all that kind of thing. I also like to share anything that can help other people get or bond better with their cards or have a better relationship with their cards. And I have a super, 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 super exciting announcement that has been a long time coming today, and I'm going to be getting into it. But today we're going to be talking about my top 10 decks from my own collection that I feel like are really great for tapping into intuition. And this is so super appropriate because of my special announcement. So keep watching. First off, a little bit of background. So when I first started reading tarot, I really struggled with the practical side of my brain and the part of me that wanted to believe that tarot worked, and then the part of me that's like, but I need an explanation, like I need to know how it works. And I really sort of struggled with overcoming my logic brain, or my left brain, I guess you could say. And because of that, I went through a whole bunch of different techniques that I sort of threw myself in the deep end in a lot of ways. And I've talked about this in other videos. In fact, most recently I talked about this in more detail in my 90s video, but which I'll try to remember to link up in the cards. In any case, I found a number of ways to sort of bypass my logical brain and start to really trust myself and my intuition. And I wanted to pull some decks today to show you in a ranking order the ones that I feel like kind of help me get there with the least amount of personal effort. You know what I mean? Like the ones that I feel like it comes the easiest to me by using these particular decks. And there's very specific reasons for each one that I'm going to talk to you about. But I'm going to get into the top 10, and somewhere in the middle of this top 10 ranking is going to be tucked away a little special announcement. And there'll be more details about that special announcement at the very, very end. So settle in. I don't know why I wanted to do it this way. I just thought it'd be fun. And this is a long time coming. So just let me have my fun here. Okay? Okay, let's get into it. So ranked number 10, and we're going to go from 10 to 1, with 1 being my easiest to access my intuition deck. Coming in at number 10 currently is the Art of Love Tarot. This is a deck by Blue Angel, and it's a Tony Carmine Salerno deck. I don't know if I called it right. Did I call it the Art of Love? Yes. It used to be called the Tarot of Light, I think it was. I feel like I can't remember which name came first. But anyways, it's currently on Blue Angel's really nice matte cardstock, and it's absolutely lovely. This one, there's something about this deck I really, really love. For starters, Tony Carmine Salerno's artwork, but I think one of the things I really love about this particular deck is the fact that we've got this beautiful soft artwork, and then we have the Tarot Card Association. The names have been changed, so hearts are cups, stars are wands, angels are swords, and trees are pentacles. But in addition to that, there's a single keyword. And for some reason, I find that this just helps me get out of my sort of tarot brain in a way, the part of me that's like, these are all the associations with tarot and all the correspondences. It kind of gets me out of that place, both because the artwork I feel like was curated and sort of matched to the deck rather than created for tarot, so it kind of goes its own way in several places. Like here we have the Joy card, and it's this sort of tree that's sort of blossoming out of the earth with these little hearts in it. Here we have the Nine of Stars, similar to the Nine of Wands. Our keyword is perseverance, so I have a jumping off point, but also the artwork, I feel like I can just kind of go where I want to go with it. It gives me freedom to explore and expand. And so this particular one, I feel like just gives me a lot of playing room. I don't know how else to describe it, like a lot of room to just sort of expand and explore. And so I find that when I reach for this deck for, say, I often reach for it for like love and relationship readings, I just feel like it gives me what I need to dip in. And the artwork feels expansive, and again, it doesn't necessarily feel specifically tied to the tarot, so it lets me off-road a bit, which I really appreciate. So I love this Ace of Stars creation with the ocean waves and the big golden star. I love it. But in a lot of ways, the decks that I feel like I would reach for most for an intuitive read are not beginner friendly, with exactly one exception in the entire list today, because I feel like the whole point for me is that they don't make me immediately think the Rider-Waite-Smith image, for example. So I don't immediately go to that tarot brain place. And so I really appreciate that about decks that are more abstract, or that kind of go in a different direction. And this deck does that really, really beautifully. Because I like this deck so much, though, I don't have any other Oracle decks with Tony Carmine Salerno's artwork on it, and there are many that I think are beautiful, because the artwork does show up in different places among the other decks, and I don't want to build associations, if that makes sense, or have there be clashing. Like if this is the King of Angels, Peaceful Warrior in this deck, I don't want it to show up in an Oracle deck and mean something else and then throw me off, you know what I mean? So this is the only one. So I believe I had another deck, I think it was called the Gaian Oracle or something, that I rehomed after a time because I had just so bonded with this one. I love this rest for the Four of Swords. But anyways, the Art of Love Tarot comes in at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is the Anna K Tarot. And this is the one that I feel like is the least like the others on this list because it is very scenic. Let me zoom you in. Actually, I'll do it this way instead of holding it. It's very, very scenic. It's very emotive, but this is intuitive in a different way. In this particular deck, the people are really expressive. They have a lot of emotion. There's a lot happening. It feels like when it comes to connecting to people-y energies, this deck just does such an incredible job of helping me to see the emotions the characters might be experiencing, which helps me tap into empathy when I'm doing readings. It helps me connect with what is happening emotionally in the deck. And that is something very unique to this one. There are other decks that I feel like I can see lots happening with the people for sure, but I feel like there's something about this particular artwork, and I get that the faces on this deck are not everybody's favorite thing ever, but Anna is the creators Anna anyway, this Anna K Tarot, these characters, you can see personality, and that is a huge part of how I intuitively read, depending on context. So this helps me tap into that. It's not so Rider-Waite-Smithy, even though it is very much based on the Rider-Waite-Smith, that I only see the Rider-Waite-Smith. It's not so locked into those stories or those images. The images do go their own way, so it's not a clone. And there's so much expression happening on the characters, so much. I just feel energetically like I can connect to the emotions in this deck. But this is one that I feel is very beginner friendly. In fact, it's one of my favorites to recommend for people brand new to the tarot because there's so much happening. It's very, very easy to get to know the court cards with this deck. It's very easy to get to know the meaning of all the cards with this deck. It's just an incredible, incredible deck if you're trying to get to know the tarot and what each card stands for. But intuitively, it just gives me so much emotion to play with that I get to do a lot with this deck for sure. So it's seen a lot of use in my collection, and it's definitely a go-to for connecting to that empathetic part of my psychic awareness. So I love that about this deck. Coming in at number 8, the Voyager Tarot. And this one is intuitive in an entirely different way. So this is, I believe this one is still in order. I've shown it a bunch of times lately, but it's still in order. That's okay. We're just going to flip through some of the cards. I'll try to skip some so you don't get just the majors or just one suit or whatever. The reason this is an intuitive deck is very, very different than the Anna K or the Art of Love. The Voyager Tarot has so much happening on the cards that there are a bunch of things that I can kind of key into, tap into, based on what card I draw. So for example, in the Strength card, I could go right to the lion, but I could also go down here. I could also go up here to this bird. I could go to the butterfly. I could go to this statue or this egg. There are 100 different things. Well, maybe not 100, but there's a lot of different things in every single card. I could kind of tune into this whirlpool in the Hanged Man or this eye of this bird here. And so this taps into a different way of reading intuitively, and this is going to be highly relevant when I get to my announcement. But I know so much like, ooh, anticipation. But I love this for the fact that I can just bounce around to all kinds of different things and read it based on whatever that thing makes me think of, which just takes me in a whole other direction intuitively. So decks like this are really great. It's one of the reasons I like really busy decks or decks with a lot of action happening on them, because I feel like then you get this opportunity to jump around and explore and expand. There are also keywords on this card, so there is something else. I can also jump from the keyword. Now it's a little hard to see. This is the older edition, so it's a very pale background, but this one is Delusion for the 10 of Crystals. And then here we have the Worlds, Setback or Synergy, Breakthrough. It's just got so much happening. Brilliant. Brilliant. Really, really good for that type of intuition, intuitive exploring, right? Really, really good for that. So that is the Voyager Tarot. And this is available currently mass market. This is just an older, slightly bigger edition with a slightly different colored border. So that is the Voyager Tarot. Coming in at number 7 for me is the Shimmering Veil Tarot. Now this is one of the newest ones to my collection. Actually, I think it is the newest one to my collection in this category. Oh, no. There's a couple. There's one or two that might technically be newer or around the same time. So the Shimmering Veil Tarot by Scylla Conway is one that I feel like gets me into my intuition because of the nature of the artwork and the fact that the card titles are very unobtrusive. It's like this borderless artwork, and the actual card association is on every single card, but it's very small and sort of unobtrusive down here in the lower right-hand corner. So here we have the Six of Waters, the Six of Cups, the Three of Fire, etc. But because it's just artwork front and center, and because the nature of Scylla's artwork is this very sort of mushy, I don't say that in a bad way, but this very flowy, kind of melty, it has this melty sort of quality to it that whenever I see artwork like this, it has this kind of effect on me. And I don't know if it's because it feels a little bit more flowy or more watery, but I feel like I sink into it in a different way. And the Shimmering Veil Tarot really does that for me. So it helps me to read the cards again without focusing too hard on the tarot associations. It sort of frees me up a little bit because the art is front and center. So that's where my eyes go. My eyes don't first seek out what card it is, if that makes any sense, but rather what's happening in the art. And that lets me really tap in and get past that logical brain, that left side of my brain where I want to analyze things, right? It gets me into that more creative, melty, flowy place. And that's what this deck does so beautifully for me. And I don't think I'm alone in that experience. I feel like I've heard from others that they have a similar experience with this deck. But again, this is a very personal list because, of course, the decks that help you get past the analysis part of you, those kinds of decks are going to be different for every person, right? Some people will want something even more abstract or maybe less abstract. You can see there's quite a variety in the decks that I'm showing you already because of the ways that they help me get into that intuitive space. And so that's something that you want to keep in mind, is that just because I or somebody else says this is the most intuitive deck for me doesn't mean that it's going to be the most intuitive deck for you, which is something to keep in mind. And that's something that you'll get to know as you learn what works for you and what doesn't work for you. More on that in a moment, because apparently I love the tease. I can't help it. I'm sorry. Okay, so anyway, the Shimmering Veil Tarot is definitely one of my very, very favorites for getting into that intuitive space. Coming in at number 6 is something quite unexpected, I think, and that is the Anne Stokes Bicycle playing cards. I had such an incredible experience when I got this deck in. I got it just for novelty. Okay, so let me zoom you in and show you. I got it just for novelty, thinking it was going to have unicorns on the court cards and be just basically pips on the minors, and I was very surprised to find out that wasn't the case. I was also really, really charmed by this backing, which has here Creed Mihi, which in Latin means believe in me, which is incredible. I mean, come on now. But I was really charmed because I actually recognized some of these illustrations. So some of these are Anne Stokes artwork, and some of them are, I don't think she did all the artwork. I think some of it is curated art. But as soon as I started flipping through this deck when I first got it in, I immediately connected to these images. Now, part of that is because I have such a strong bond with unicorns, but specifically, I felt like as I started flipping through this deck that I could actually understand what each card was trying to tell me. The playing card associations do give me some tarot correspondence to work with, because playing cards do correspond with tarot if you want to. So the hearts are associated with cups, spades are associated with swords, and wands are associated with clubs, and diamonds are associated with pentacles. So when I first got this, started flipping through it and realized I knew what the meaning of each card was. It's really hard to describe. It was actually a very almost like semi-channeled kind of experience that I'd never had before with a deck like that, where I just got a bunch of cards and was like, oh, I know that that's telling me to, that I have a message from my ancestors, right? Or I know what this is telling me. And having that experience was really unique. So I quickly went through the deck and jotted down what I got from every single image. And so each one of these now has an assigned meaning, which is incredible. But also I can take it off-road if I want. The reason that this feels like a deck for tapping into my intuition is because I feel like it came to me in such a intuitive way in the first place. Like I thought it was just going to be playing cards, you know, something to have just for funsies. And it turned into something so much deeper and richer. Like it's not something that I'll use for others, but it really took me to a place that is hard to describe. So if you ever have a deck of cards, whether it's a tarot deck, an oracle deck, or something else that comes into your hands and you just feel instantly like you get it or it gets you or the messages just come through, that's a really great deck for intuitive work, because you know that there's something about those images, that artwork, or the way the deck is put together that just speaks to you on that level, which I think is just the most exciting thing ever, ever, ever. And I have had such an incredible experience working with this deck. So that is the Bicycle Unicorn playing cards. So I feel like before I show my 5th deck, because it's a nice even halfway, I mean, I guess it's not that much of a surprise that I'd stick it in the halfway point. I feel like I should share my announcement now. I have finally finished my intuitive tarot reading course, and I am over the moon. It's really hard to describe how much mental acrobatics I needed to go through in order to create this course. But I'm not going to babble because I'm probably going to end up repeating myself. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and roll the video that I made to share this with you. So I'm going to play that right now. So you're comfortable with the basic meanings of all 78 cards of the tarot, but you want to take your readings further. You want to take your practice deeper, and you want to feel more closely connected with your tarot cards. Then maybe what you want to do is get into intuitive reading, really dipping into those more hard to pin down elements of reading the tarot. That is what this course is all about. In this intuitive tarot reading course, I will introduce you to what I feel are the key components in reading cards intuitively and guide you through the process and practice of befriending your own intuition and how it shows up for you so that you can experience more confidence and magic in your approach to reading cards. Where my first course, Tarot Bootcamp for Beginners, is designed to introduce the cards in a way that is practical and concrete, this course goes in an entirely different direction, showing you how I moved away from relying on the concrete and quantifiable and how that dramatically deepened my relationship with tarot and oracle cards. And yes, while this course does heavily focus on tarot, it is not tarot exclusive. The practices will apply to both tarot and oracle reading, and both are used in different areas of the course. If that sounds intriguing to you, I do hope you'll consider joining me. This is going to be a lot of fun, and unlike my previous course, I'm going to be opening up as well a social media group on Facebook where you can buddy up with other people taking the course, practice exercises with each other, ask your questions, sort of build and support one another through this process, because unlike Tarot Bootcamp, where you're just trying to really get down some foundational meanings, in intuitive tarot reading, what I'm really trying to do is give you practical exercises and experience that you can use to deepen your intuition, to feel more comfortable, to learn to trust yourself, all of that stuff. And it's been not an easy job, actually, to try to figure out how to, in a way, sort of quantify and create a system around intuitive reading, because it's such an organic process. But I think I've figured it out, and I think what I have to share with you will give you a couple different ways to come at the idea of intuitive reading or more psychic approach to the cards, and give you a way to do that that is approachable, accessible, and doesn't feel so out of reach. So with all that said, I'm really, really excited to be launching intuitive tarot reading, and I cannot wait to hear your feedback on this new course. Thank you so, so much, and I'll see you over there. I'm so excited, you guys. You don't know. This is like something that I have wanted to do for a very, very, very long time. I had the idea to do the intuitive tarot reading course before I created Tarot Bootcamp for Beginners, my beginner course on my site, and before I created Tarot with Training Wheels. This was the vision, right? I wanted to do this course so badly, but I wanted to make it accessible. And to do that, I wanted to start with meeting people where they are at the absolute beginning. So if you don't already know, I already had a course. As I mentioned, Tarot with Training Wheels happens right here on YouTube. It's a playlist you can find on my channel. It takes you through the basic meanings of all 78 cards and helps you build associations with those cards. And then I created a much deeper dive version of that course and put it on my website. That one is Tarot Bootcamp for Beginners, and it goes more into correspondences, numbers, colors, all that kind of stuff. Helps you to read pip decks, that kind of thing. So that's on my website already. Launching intuitive tarot reading was the dream, though, and it's 2 years in the making. So I'm very excited to be here today and say it's out and it's ready and it's live on my website right this minute. Before you run over there, though, there is going to be a discount, a promotion period where I'm making it cheaper so that you can jump in and access it. So from now until the end of September 2022, which is the launch time for this course, until the end of September 2022, you can get the course for 15% off. You could also get Tarot Bootcamp for Beginners for 15% off if you want to take that first. So I put both on sale for 15% off. The code, I'm going to pop it right on the screen right now, is ITR, so Intuitive Tarot Reading, ITR Launch 15. Really easy to remember. I'll also have all the links and such in the description box down below. And you can watch the first lesson for free. So if you want to just hear me talk more about the course and like what it's about and what we're covering and all that kind of stuff, then head on over, check out the first lesson, and let me know what you guys think. I'm very, 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 very excited. Taking something like intuitive tarot reading and making it concrete was just, it was a true labor because I had to really, really circumvent my own analytical brain to do intuitive tarot reading, but to teach it, to find a method that would work, to show you guys how it works, how to do it, how to tap into it. I had to kind of get back to that analytical place about something that's not analytical. So it was really challenging, but really, really super fun to do. And I'm very, very proud of it and very excited. So thank you for indulging me while I shared this exciting news with you all. I'm going to get back to my top 10 right now. So coming in at number 5 is the Luminous Void Tarot. This was probably the first tarot deck that I thought of as an intuitive reader. In fact, there was a time when I was doing some readings for clients over the phone. And when I was reading for clients over the phone, this is the deck that I would reach for because those readings just have a completely different vibe than my usual readings that I offer on my site. Oh, sorry, really quick, another aside, real quick business matter. Readings have been out of stock. They will probably stay out of stock for the rest of August as I catch my breath after pushing the course out, making sure that it got released and all that kind of stuff. So if you've been waiting for an opportunity to book a reading, keep your eyes out. I will probably put them back into stock starting at the beginning of September so that once I've just had a chance to kind of like breathe and like unwind after all the anticipation of releasing the course. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. Anyway, back to this. So the Luminous Void Tarot, this is an art I keep wanting to hold them. I'm sorry. I'm going to put it down. I'm going to make myself put it down. It'll be fine. This is not, how do I say this and not sound crappy? This is not an art style that I look at and go, oh, prettiest thing ever. It's just not for me in that way. And in a lot of ways, I don't know why I like this deck aesthetically. And I would say, honestly, other than the fact that the shape is really cool, the art style is almost on the borderline of creepy for me because of this is even more squishy and melty by a lot than the Shimmering Veil Tarot. It's this very like loose watercolor. The faces of the characters are very like kind of messy and smushy. And there's something about this wet water, smushy, blendy, melty quality, as I mentioned before with the Shimmering Veil, that just hits me in a different place. And this particular deck, I feel like, does it in such a over-the-top kind of way that if I really want to get out of my head, if I really want to get out of my brain, this is incredible for that. It's the best tarot I've ever found for getting into that space for me personally. And I shouldn't say best because there's technically one that outranked this one in today's ranking. So it's the second best. But for certain types of intuitive reading, this is the one I will grab. Like if somebody's like, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It depends on the question asked, but if I know I needed to really, 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 really get into this place, like really not overthink what the card means, but instead like really feel my way through the artwork, use the artwork as more of a scrying bowl than an actual deck, you know what I mean? If I need to do that with tarot, then this is an incredible one for me to do that with. And really was the only one I would reach for in those scenarios for a very, very long time. So the Luminous Void is one that doesn't get a lot of play, actually. I don't reach for it often, but it's like one of those decks that I know when I need it, and when I need it, I need it, like it specifically. It's not like another deck can just like slot in and do the job that this deck does. So in that way, it's really important that I have this handy because it really does a job that no other deck does for me. So the Luminous Void, there's something just really special about this, and I wouldn't be without it. Coming in at number 4 is Roots and Wings. So this came in, it was really a struggle to figure out whether this one or Luminous Void should go first in the ranking. So they're kind of tied, really, if I'm being honest, because I often use them together. The Roots and Wings Oracle is the most intuitive Oracle deck I feel like I own for just general purpose, any kind of topic sort of use. And it's not quite as smushy. It's definitely still watercolory, right? So it still has that vibe about it. But there's something about this and the combination of the keywords and the artwork. Like here, for example, we have the snake who's called the healer. We see it shedding its skin. There's a lot here I can go off of. I can go off of the lemniscate shape of the snake itself, the fact that snakes are associated with wisdom and transformation. I can go there. But I can also go into a place where I think about the ways in which we battle ourselves, we tie ourselves up into knots. I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's just, I look at this artwork and I get it. I get it. And it's often telling me something more than something as simple as what it says on the card. So it's not, and maybe this is the quality. Maybe this is the thing I've been trying to describe or define this whole video, is that they're decks that, while I could take them at face value, I never do. I never just go, oh, eyeball inner vision. Okay, it's about intuition. I never just go to face value. I always go 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 layers deeper than that. with the decks that I'm showing in this ranking. There's something about their quality, their artwork, or something that takes me past the surface level of the meaning of the card and lets me travel and journey even further and even deeper. And I'll argue, as I will in the course, that you can read intuitively with any deck. It's certainly absolutely a thing. But there are certainly decks that when I know I need to get out of that place, I go to, and this is absolutely one of them. Like, this feels like it should be so simple. Time, hourglass, like, take it at face value, but I never do. If there's something about the way that I read with this that I just, there's someplace else it always takes me. And that's the cool thing about working with the Roots and Wings. It's an explorative deck, and I love that about it. But I don't believe that that's something that is, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I feel like it's something specific to my relationship with this deck and just the way that it happens to speak to me. And certainly I find myself doing this easier and better with decks that have something smushy about them. I'm sure you've noticed that so far. So that is the Roots and Wings Oracle at number 4. Coming in at number 3, and I would not have ever expected to see this particular deck in this ranking at all, but coming in at number 3 is the Chicoli Tarot. Oh my goodness. Okay. Hello. Seriously? The Chicoli Tarot. So I've talked about this a fair amount recently, and I did a full deep dive into this deck. And I know that this one is not for everybody, and I 100% am confident that my intuitive experience with this deck is specific to me, much in the same way that the bicycle unicorn cards were. It's just that when I got this deck and I started looking through it and I started gazing into the artwork, it just took me to a place. When I read with this for others, the messages fly faster than I can keep up in some ways. I get bombarded internally with intuition and messages, and my clairs are just boom activated. It's really something else. It's not something that I can easily define or describe, just that it happens. And so in this category, it's almost any deck that just when you first open it, you just know it speaks to you. And I've got so many more than 10, you guys, that I can do this with. So many more than 10, but these ones I feel like are the ones that have wowed me the most over time, that I've had really spectacular experiences with. And there's others, like when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking of the Tarot of Curious Creatures, which similarly just really has this very loud voice where I just immediately know what it's telling me when I pull the cards. Or there's other decks, but this one I think hit this list so high because the experience I had with it was so unexpected and astounding. Absolutely astounding. And I don't know that this is one that I would recommend for intuitive work. I think there's a lot going on here that can be challenging and triggering, as I've mentioned before. And there's things about this. There are people that I know will look at this deck and be like, there's no way I would touch that deck with a 10-foot pole. But then there are other people I feel like that see this and like, yes, I get it. It speaks to me. I understand it. You know, it understands me, something. I do think there's probably some interesting correlative reasons why some of us might bond with this deck over others, which is probably a discussion that's not suited for YouTube. But I feel like this is it's just spectacular and special to me. And I feel like if I really just need to get into that very, very psychic place, this deck can take me there with no preamble, with no special effort needed. It just, boom, I'm there. And in a way, this has, well, I know it has superseded the way that the Luminous Void feels in that way, because it's so potent. Where Luminous Void forces me outside of my analytical brain. With this, I could totally go analytical, but I just don't. It's really hard to describe. So it's not a forcible intuitive. Does that even make sense? Does anybody understand what I'm saying? Hopefully you do. But this has just been an incredible experience for me that I would not trade at all. Ever, ever, ever. The next two are likely entirely expected because I've talked about them so much, or at least my number one pick I've talked about too much. This is the point at which you should probably guess, if you haven't already, what my number one is. If you're watching, pause, guess. Fun little game. If you haven't already. Some of you are like, I know what your top number one is going to be, but let's talk about number two first. Number two first will probably also reveal what number one will be. So, you know, spoiler alert and all. The Portals of Presence by Deborah Cove Chopin. So I have such a strong bond with Deborah's touch drawing, and the Portals of Presence is a massive, unwieldy deck. I don't even know if rightfully you can call it a deck. It's like a stack of 4x6 glossy postcards. That's really what it is. You know what I mean? It's humongous. It's unshuffleable, right, in the normal ways. I can side shuffle it, thankfully. So I'm grateful to be able to do that, but it is huge. And even going sideways, you got to understand it's 4 inches. That's taller than some tarot. So yeah, that's a whole thing. In any case, the Portals of Presence are entirely unique because they are faces. The only other deck I feel like that ever did this in this kind of way would be, I think it's called the Wisdom Keepers Oracle, which had faces like this, where you were making eye contact with every single card. And because the cards are so massive, I get physical reactions to the eye contact I make with these characters. I feel as though they're literally standing in front of me. It's a three-dimensional experience that is unparalleled by any other deck. And I don't think any other deck could do what this did. I had the Wisdom Keepers, and while it was lovely, it did not give me the goosebumpy, physical, visceral reaction that this one does. And so I use this right now exclusively in my past life readings, and it does an astounding job in that capacity. It really helps me to go in to the card, and I literally go in through the eyes. I mean, it is called the portal. It is called the Portals of Presence because we say that eyes are the portals or the windows to the soul, right? So it is very on point for that kind of work. It's also could be for some very disturbing and very uncomfortable. But for me, I feel like it just takes me right where I need to go and gives me the information I need to serve my client best. I feel like this is a wonderful deck for wisdom seeking, for connecting to guides or working with guides. I feel like it would be really wonderful for that. So far, again, I've only used it in my past life readings, and my cap is 3 cards in a reading. I don't think I've ever pulled 4. I may have, but I think it's always capped at 3. They're quite intense. So the Portals of Presence is really, really incredible for intuitive work. And the thing that's so incredible specifically about these decks by Deborah Croft Chapman is that they are meaningless in the sense that they were not created to convey a particular message. There's no keyword, there's no themes, there's nothing in a guidebook, there's nothing. It's all up to you and what you get from the cards. And that's just, you can't, in my opinion, have the same experience from something where there is a go-to meaning to fall back into. It's very much the high diving board of intuitive reading. And yeah, astounding for that. The Portals of Presence. And that brings us to my number 1, which if you've watched my channel for any length of time, I'm sure you've guessed by now, or even by the last one that I showed. And that is my Soul Cards Combined 1 and 2. Now, I've talked about this deck at length, again, even recently in my 90s video. I talked about it so much, but I will continue to talk about it because it's incredible. Now, this is 2 decks combined. Again, the Soul Cards 1 and the Soul Cards 2. And you can see that mine have blue backs. So Soul Cards 1 has this lighter color, if I recall. Yeah. And Soul Cards 2 has this darker blue color. But nowadays, if you get Soul Cards 2, it's a maroon color. So it's not quite as blendy in the backings. I don't know if that matters, but I will, as always, I always have links down below to things I'm talking about if they're available for you to purchase. So I always put links down in the description box when I can. But in any case, this deck and I have a very special relationship. And this was a deck that I got myself, both of these, I got myself in the very beginning of my journey to help me learn how to read in this way, learn how to read cards and read clients and read people without relying on any set meanings. And it fast-tracked my confidence in myself, my sense of self-trust, my ability to read intuitively. It was my powerhouse, and it's still my powerhouse, and it's still my go-to for the kind of readings that I really, really need to be completely out of my analytical brain, right? So I use this deck for past life readings. That is the heart and soul of my past life readings I do for clients. But for anything, for friends, for family, for myself, it's also the deck I'll go to if I need to dig into some places. If I really need to get into a fully psychic space, this is the deck I will reach for most of the time. And I love it for that. I love its gift of helping me get to that place. But it's further away and less confronting than the Portals of Presence. There are a few cards like this one where you get right into a character. But most of the time, it's more like you are observing than you're confronting. You're seeing through a window or a doorway or a gateway, however you want to look at that, to an experience or something happening. And it just is this incredibly potent experience for me. But again, this is so personal. And I feel like you could potentially do the same thing with any deck of cards that you find that have artwork that you resonate with. Could be an art deck. Could be a tarot deck that you've never gotten to know, but you chop all the titles off, so you just have artwork that just speaks to you to work with. I feel like there's so many ways to have this kind of an experience without this specific deck, so don't think that this is the only one out there for doing this kind of work. I've seen lots of decks of cards that aren't even meant to be oracle cards that you could use for this kind of a thing. But I really am so grateful and love my Soul Cards combined deck so much. And this particular copy is so smushed and worn and soft and squishy, and I love it for that. So that is my top 10 decks for tapping into intuition. Because I couldn't help myself, I went ahead and made this a tag. Hashtag top 10 intuitive decks. I would love, if you have a channel, I would love to hear what your top 10 are for getting you out of that analytical space. What decks do you reach for when you really want to get into the deeper layers of a reading? What decks help you get past all of that rote academic memorized understanding of the tarot or whatever, and into that space where you can just float and fly and off-road and zoom around with your readings and your interpretations? I would love, love, love to hear your responses to this. So be sure and tag me. You can use on YouTube the @ Lisa Papez, and you should be able to tag me so that I can see that you've done a VR. I will create a playlist so that everybody can check out all of the responses to this tag. I would love to watch the responses to this tag. It will be a blast. And also, I would love to see how other people interpret this. I know that for me, there's certain qualities that help me get there, but I'd be so curious to hear what qualities help you get there and find out more about that. As a reminder, my Intuitive Tarot course launched today, and I cannot wait to hear feedback on how it goes over. If you are interested, be sure and click the link down below, and don't forget the coupon code so you can get 15% off through the end of September. Thank you all so, so much. Extra special big thank you, as always, to the Unicorn Fam channel members. You guys really help me do what I do here. To all of you, thank you so much for watching my channel, for engaging, for commenting, for doing all the things you do. Most of all, I appreciate that you put your eyeballs here on this space. Thank you so, so much, and may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye!